Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, and welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So as the Siamese cat stares into your soul, I will use this to introduce the book of the day, which is uh, the first in Lilian Jackson Braun's Cat Who series, which I have read most of. As with a lot of the books that I'm going to be talking about, I make no pretensions that I am discussing great literature, and I make no real pretensions to intellectualism. What I make pretensions of towards to is of somebody throw me a preposition thing. Is it preposition? I don't know grammar. I don't English good some days, often, usually, frequently. Wow, this video is going to be half sentence fragments. Um, so I don't make any sort of pretension to anything except that I'm talking about a book that I had fun while reading. Um, Now, you may look at some of the books that I talk about and ask me how I could possibly have had fun reading that, but I like to consider myself to. No, I don't read a lot of different things. Most of what I read is fantasy novels, and I read a lot in the area of series. Now, the problem with reading series is that I feel somewhat bound most of the time to at least try to finish out the whole series. Um, and more to the point, I feel I would like to do complete book series on this channel. The problem with doing complete book series, of course, is that doing a book series on something like this means that I talk about the same series of books over and over and over again, and it doesn't allow for a lot of variety, and so I'm planning to break this up. There was something of a temporal lag, several years lag, uh, between when Lilian Jackson Braun, the author of today's book, The Cat Who Could Read Backwards, uh, she wrote this book, or rather published this book in 1966. And it is of its time. It speaks to an audience for whom typewriters are a thing that you're used to seeing. It speaks to people who are used to being in a world where if you are not near an actual physical phone, then people cannot get a hold of you. Without, tracking you down personally and that sort of thing. Um, and the thing is that with that lag, it gives me a certain amount of space to, well, let this percolate, and if somebody out of all three people who have commented upon the things that I have done, which, by the way, to anyone listening, the three comments that I have received have been on three separate videos. The books that I did those three videos for are each very different from each other, so I don't know, I so far don't have anyone telling me that I should be, either implicitly or explicitly, that I should be sticking with a particular book. I have now killed 4 minutes not actually talking about the book proper, so let's get on with that. The Cat Who series stars Jim Qwilleran, and in later books, another cat is added, but we will discuss that other cat when we get to that cat. This first book is just Jim Qwilleran and the cat who becomes his, Kao K'o Kung, who is known as Koko throughout the rest of the series. And the thing about these is, ostensibly, they're mysteries. Somebody dies at the start, and Qwilleran, in the end, solves it. But this isn't a mystery where you get a series of clues, and you can figure it out along with uh, Jim Qwilleran, because there are clues that make it clear who the killer is. You don't get this isn't Sherlock Holmes, and this isn't Murder, She Wrote. Instead, what this is a cat who we are asked to believe is in some way psychic. Um, Basically, the cat acts the way cats do and knocks things off of shelves and hits stuff and yowls very, very loudly. And Qwilleran has learned to interpret that in ways um, that help him solve the crime. Whether or not you want to read this as Koko the cat is psychically linked into something and is trying to explain that the killer is this, that, or the other thing, or if you want to believe that it's just a cat being a cat, that's totally fine either way. Because you don't really read these books for the mysteries. You read these books because Jim Qwilleran is funny and sardonic at times, and this is a this is a book where Qwilleran will think things like the fact that by the man's age and schooled manner, Qwilleran recognized him as the new breed of editor, one of the precision-honed generation who approached newspapering as a science rather than a holy cause. Qwilleran had always worked for the other kind, the old-fashioned nail-spitting crusaders. And uh, that sort of that sort of writing is what I enjoy about these books. The fact that Qwilleran doesn't tend to suffer fools gladly, that he is a bit of a ladies' man, that he has his repeated and determined attempts to suck it in so that people don't see that he's gained an extra 10 pounds. Um, all of this, all of these lead up to a clever and witty and funny character. And that's what I really enjoy about these books. Also, the fact that Qwilleran, by virtue of being a newspaper writer, by virtue of the sorts of things that he does, tends to wind up in a lot of fish out of water situations. We learn at the start of this book that Qwilleran was once a war reporter, that he was a crime reporter, that he wrote an award-winning book about urban crime, and then following his divorce, he became an alcoholic. And his life sort of fell apart, and this book starts with him trying to put his life back together. He's recovered from his alcoholism, although he has to, stay on the wagon and all that, but he's now looking seriously for jobs, and this book starts with him interviewing at a newspaper to get a new job. And even though his beat was crime and politics and war and all kinds of really, really hardcore, exciting stuff, the sorts of things journalism students get into journalism to cover, instead, what we get is we get this guy who has been told, you're going to report on art. You're going to do art features. He doesn't know bumpkiss about art. And so this whole book is filled with him staring blankly at things and going, I don't get it. Which is fine, because a lot of modern art is stuff that you look at it and you think that you don't get it. Those of us who have taken art, who have taken art as a specialization in university, also much of the time don't get it. We just lie when we say we do. And if anyone tells you they're not lying when they say they get it, honestly, I think they're lying about that too. So, as we go through this book, which doesn't have a particularly, pertinent ending, the book is about Qwilleran talking to his cat. The book is about Qwilleran talking to weird people. The book is about Qwilleran talking about how much he loves food. There's a lot of food in these books. Lilian Jackson Braun actually let people publish a cookbook, which I own, based on these books. And I may even at some point haul out the cookbook and talk about it here. I actually have at least one other cookbook slated to talk about at some point in the future. So, now the centerpiece of this book, aside from Qwilleran, is of course Koko the cat, who is a Siamese. And Siamese, aside from being very, very pretty and adorable and cute, are extremely loud and extremely sociable and very, very difficult. Um, Siamese are cats. Siamese are the kind of cats that really, really don't like it when you don't pay attention to them. Some cats can, like, take you or leave you, or will, put up with you ignoring them. Siamese will not. They will make noise until you do. It's a functional part of what a Siamese cat is about. And so Koko is very much a character in this. He's very central, he's got a great deal of personality. And when his owner, the art critic, Mountclemens, is murdered, and by the way, Mountclemens is a marvelous character who turns out to be kind of a bad guy who was uh, running a bit of a scam, which was why he was murdered. But at the same time, Qwilleran likes him because he's an extremely civilized person and an excellent chef. Um, and I suspect he knows a lot more about art than the so-called artists in this book claim, because, um, frankly, it's very, very easy to be very, very scathing about art. Um, the thing is that when Mountclemens dies, Qwilleran winds up basically inheriting Koko just by virtue of being there. And that's how the two of them come together. And while Qwilleran is not an art person, he is a food person and a book person. And those two things combine to make him very much Koko's kind of person. And you see the regard that these two characters have for each other, Cat and his pet owner, human, because we all know that cats own us. We do not own cats. Cats own us. Um, the only reason cats hang around, after all, is because we're where the food is. Um, and this is a book this. What I really, really like about this, actually, funnily enough, of course, is that while the murder mystery is sort of the driving plot, it's the point. It's the thing that drives Qwilleran to do the things that he does, that drives him to investigate in the way that he does. It's not the point. The point is all of the people and things that that Qwilleran talks about along the way. Um, Butchie Bolton, who is a woman welder who makes metal welded art, and Zoe Lambreth, who is part of an art gallery, and all of these wonderful characters, and some very, very strong female characters. There are always very strong female characters in this series of books. Yes, it's about Jim Qwilleran, but there are no woman pushovers in this series. And okay, there are some, because sometimes people are pushovers, but not the people that Qwilleran spends time with. So, I think that I've talked about this book enough, because I have 14 seconds left on my timer. So, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll hear more about this series soon.